Get ready because what you're about to hear isn't comfortable, it isn't common, and it's definitely not something everyone is able to accept. In fact, most people will go through their entire lives without ever realizing this. They'll call exhaustion an existential crisis, stress, a rough phase, or simply something in your head. But if you're here right now, listening closely to these words, it's because something inside you already knows it's not just that. There's a silent process unfolding, something deep, invisible to the eyes, but impossible to ignore once it begins. And once it begins, there is no going back. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or dramatic signs. It doesn't show up as a single life-changing event that flips everything overnight. Quite the opposite. It comes in quietly, almost unnoticed, blending into your ordinary days. You're living your routine, doing what you've always done, keeping schedules, deal with people, solving problems, and then, in an apparently insignificant moment, something breaks inside you. A simple but devastating thought crosses your mind. This life doesn't feel like mine anymore. And from that moment on, nothing is ever the same. You start to notice that what once made sense now feels empty. Conversations that used to flow feel shallow. Goals that once motivated you now seem strange, as if they belong to someone you're no longer aligned with. This isn't sadness. It isn't ingratitude. It's a deep misalignment between who you become internally and the reality you've built externally. And it hurts because you can't explain it. Not to others, and not even to yourself. At first, you try to rationalize it. You tell yourself it's just a phase, that everyone goes through this, that maybe you just need more rest, a trip, a change of scenery, something to distract your mind. You try to adapt back into the old version of your life. But something has already shifted. The attempt to return to autopilot fails. Your body is still present, but your soul no longer fits. It's like wearing clothes that once fit perfectly, but now feel tight, restrictive, uncomfortable. And the more you force yourself to fit back into them, the more suffocating everything becomes. Then comes the second shift, often even harder to accept. The people around you begin to feel different, not because they changed, but because you did. Longtime friends no longer resonate the same way. Conversations repeat themselves. Jokes lose their meaning. There's an odd silence even when you're together. You look at familiar faces and feel a distance that never existed before. This isn't superiority. It isn't judgment. It's simply the feeling that you're now speaking different languages. This distance can feel incredibly lonely. You start wondering if you're isolating yourself too much, if you're becoming cold, if something is wrong with you. And this is exactly where many people give up. They choose to fit back in even if it costs them their own truth just to avoid losing connections, just to keep the appearance of peace. But if this is truly happening to you, something inside won't allow that return. Your soul simply refuses to keep pretending. And even when you try, life begins to close doors. Invitations fade. Connections dissolve. Spaces that once felt safe now feel heavy, draining, misaligned. At the same time, the world starts to feel more intense. Sounds bother you more. Crowded places drain your energy quickly. Bright lights, noise, constant stimulation create a kind of exhaustion that isn't just physical. You start to feel too much. You sense the emotional atmosphere of places. You pick up on tension that used to pass unnoticed. Sometimes, just walking into a room is enough to shift your internal state. This isn't weakness. It isn't ordinary anxiety. It's energetic sensitivity. Your system is more open, more refined, and far less tolerant of what isn't in harmony. You begin to crave silence, nature, time alone. And what's most surprising is that this solitude doesn't come with sadness. On the contrary, it brings relief. It feels like you can finally breathe, like the external noise quiets down just enough for you to hear something subtler, something more real. You begin to realize it's not that the world is wrong. It's that its rhythm no longer matches yours. With this, another quiet but profound transformation takes place. The need to compete starts to dissolve. You no longer feel the same urge to prove your worth. You don't need to win, outperform, or impress the way you once did. You may still have ambition. You may still want to grow. But the motivation has changed. The ego that once sought validation begins to lose its grip. In its place, a far more unsettling question appears. Does this actually make sense to me? You stop climbing ladders that lead to empty places. Success without purpose starts to feel hollow, irrelevant. And then comes one of the most disorienting experiences of all, the sense that time no longer works the way it used to. Hours pass too fast or painfully slow. You enter deep states of presence or reflection where the clock seems to lose all importance. Rigid plans begin to fall apart. Schedules stop making sense. You notice you're being guided less by calendars and more by intuition. Meetings happen at exactly the right moment. Messages arrive when they're needed. Coincidences stack up, and even if you can't explain it logically, you begin to feel it. There's a greater intelligence organizing the movement. At this point, something starts growing inside you, a clear yet undefined sense that you are not here just to live an ordinary life. This isn't arrogance. It isn't fantasy. It's a quiet, persistent inner calling. You feel you came here to do something even if you don't yet know what it is. What once felt sufficient no longer is. Social roles, labels, other people's expectations begin to lose their weight. You don't just want to exist. You want to live with meaning. This can create confusion, fear, a deep identity crisis. Because when you no longer recognize yourself in what you do but haven't yet discovered who your beckoning to void appears. Many people interpret this void as failure or loss. But in truth, it is space. A sacred pause between who you were and who you are becoming. Ignoring it only makes the calling louder. The more you try to suppress it, the stronger it becomes. Until you reach the final turning point, the most transformative one of all. You lose the ability to pretend. You can no longer smile out of politeness when something feels false. You can no longer agree just to avoid conflict. You can no longer shrink yourself to fit into places that don't honor who you are. You don't become aggressive. You become authentic. And that authenticity changes everything. Some people drift away. Others are drawn to you intensely. But for the first time, you feel whole. This is when you realize your old life didn't fall apart by accident. It simply can't contain who you're becoming. This isn't punishment. It's preparation. You're not losing your mind. You're not lost. You're not broken. You're moving through a process that very few people experience consciously. A process not meant to make you better than others, but more honest with yourself. If this is happening to you, understand something important. This is not temporary. It's not a phase you'll get over. It's an irreversible transition. Once you see, you can't unsee. Once you feel, you can't ignore it. You're being invited to live from a deeper level of awareness, not to withdraw from the world, but to stand in it differently, with more clarity, more presence, more truth. And that's exactly why not everyone goes through this. Because it requires courage to drop the masks, strength to stand alone when necessary, and maturity to stop trying to convince others of what you're experiencing. You don't need to prove anything. This process unfolds from the inside out, and when it matures, it naturally begins to impact everything around you. If any part of this video touched you deeply, write in the comments, "This is happening to me." By doing that, you acknowledge the process and signal to yourself that you're ready to move through it consciously. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like, because the next videos will help you protect your energy, strengthen your clarity, and walk through this transformation without losing yourself along the way. You are not alone, but this is a path only those willing to live in truth can walk.